Shut up and sit down.
The current state of politics is unsustainable, politically, economically.
You still have distrust there.
We all come from very different places.
Man, we don't want the government to do a damn thing.
You deserve better.
People have to have the information in front of them.
It is about supporting, platforming, and assisting the people who are out here actually doing the fight.
There you go. Just promote people who are doing something. Volunteer to work with people who you like. And
take an issue that's important to you and do something.
You are part of that declaration against tyranny.
This conversation gives me a little more hope for the future.
The one, the only
Fight for Liberty. This is the cherry on top.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Fight for Liberty. I'm your host, David Fite. Today we have an awesome returning guest for you, but first we're going to talk a little bit, like we do every week, about our wonderful sponsors. First up, nugofknowledge.com. If you haven't already, go on over to nugofknowledge.com. They have all of the best legal-ish cannabis products you can get across the country. So they've got your Delta 8, flower, and vapes. They've got CBD, CBG, they've got edibles, they've got like teas and honeys and all sorts of other stuff. So especially if you are in a state where the government still does not allow you to own a simple little plant, definitely go on over to nugofknowledge.com and check them out. It gets shipped right to your house and it's super awesome. Use promo code FSM to get 5% off your first order and help out the network and the show and awesome libertarians you know and love. And then while you're at it, if you want to get a little drunk while you're getting high, go on over to bloodoftyrants.wine, and you can have a nice relaxing night in while also sipping on the blood of your enemies and taking down the tyrannical state. Over there, it's promo code F4L to get the same $5 off your first order. And again, help out the show, help out the network, help out awesome people like Dan Berman and Tom Queter and the people involved in these organizations. We're really excited to be a part of those groups. But today, like I mentioned, we have an awesome guest for you. He is an author. He is the host of the Brian Nichols Show. He's been on the show before, but I'm super stoked to have him back. Brian, welcome back to the show.
David Fite, good to be back on the program, my friend. How you doing?
I am doing great. Life is moving fast, and I'm just trying to keep up, but it's going good.
Amen there, my man. So, the rumor is we're going to talk about how folks can win local elections today.
Hell yeah. First, I want to go a little bit off topic and talk about the show, just to get us a little bit warmed up. And tell me, what's the coolest or best episode you've done of the show recently?
Best show recently. Maybe one of the most memorable shows recently. I had on my program Jacob Beckley from the Beckley Foundation, and they do pediatric cancer research up in Chicago, and they're changing the way that they're doing fundraising in that world using cryptocurrency. And he actually has another company that's called the Cure Token, and it's entirely focused on creating alternatives in the blockchain for not just fundraising, but also for helping advance research using what's also called the Cure Chain. So helping really push forward a lot of advancements in pediatric research. So it's really cool to see the ideas that we're promoting and the solutions we're bringing to the table actually impacting real lives. And in this case, it's little kids.
That's fucking awesome. I'm definitely going to have to go check out that episode. I'll throw the link to that one in the description for those of you that want to go back and watch it too, because that sounds really interesting. I am a big fan of taking what has been kind of like thoughts and ideas and kind of fantasy projects for, a decade and a half or almost 2 decades now of crypto and blockchain and all the cool things that could be done. And now we're actually seeing things like this or like library or like other things where we're actually solving the problems with it. That's really fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, not only is it really fun, but it's also exciting to see that the technology is at the point where it can now actually support the idea, right? This has been one of the biggest problems I think we've had in the liberty movement, by and large, is that the technology, or just by and large the culture, has not been ready to meet the liberty solutions where they're at. So now that the technology is getting to the point, we actually can stop talking in fantasy land and actually bring real solutions to the table that the technology will allow. It's going to make our cases a lot easier.
Amen. Yeah, it's a lot easier to sell somebody on, we can do this without the government. See, it's getting done. Not, we could do this without the government if technology caught up and people were cool and like everything kind of worked out well, maybe.
Yeah, well, that requires everybody to be on the same page, which we are not, right? I don't know if everybody's noticed, but we are like having national divorce trend on Twitter every like week or so. And I just think we're at a point now where a lot of people are just ready to try what works. But that requires us to be able to have the ability to try what works and actually go back to how we were founded as a country, right? Each of the 13 original colonies was supposed to be its own little experiment. And with that, you're supposed to have a lot of different ways of doing things. But we've seen to go to this mentality over the past how many 100 years or so, really, that we have to be a one-size-fits-all approach to society. And just we've seen the results of that. It's crumbling societies. It's decay in societal trust. And it's at a point where we're at the highest tensions that we've seen in generations. So yeah, it's not working out too hot.
Yeah, the getting on the same page would be a great process. But I think you touched on a great point there that like we never really were meant to all be on the same page, even when it was just this little tiny corner up in the Northeast where I'm from. We didn't even get on the same page as like the people in Pennsylvania or Connecticut, or like, there were states for a reason. And then we added 37 more, and then thought we could do it all together. Plus we've got like Puerto Rico and that crap. We don't even talk about that.
Yeah, man. Well, and that's that's why I think what we're doing is so important, right? Is like we're having these cultural conversations, and you cannot change the actual policy and the politics until you change the underlying culture. And we've seen, far too often conservatives, libertarians, pretty much anybody right of center, far too focused on playing defense. And I actually brought this up when I was on Tim Pool last year, where when you're explaining, you're losing, right? That's why it's so important for us to set narratives versus respond to narratives. And that means we have to start setting narratives in the cultural arena. Because if we're not, other people will be. And when they're setting those narratives, they're impacting the mindset and the culture for the generations going forward. And then that generation will vote, right? And we're seeing the implications of that right now firsthand. With last election cycle, 25% of the electorate was Gen Z. And Gen Z overwhelmingly went for the left, right? So that is something that we have to acknowledge, and we can't just keep putting our heads in the sand. We actually have to address it head on and start meeting people where they're at on the issues they care about, and specifically in the world of culture.
Yeah. And to your point and about the guest that you mentioned, I think that a kid who was helped in that pediatric center, who had like a crypto and blockchain system help heal them and make them a healthy person that's able to even see 18 and voting age, and then they're given two candidates. One of them is promoting like crypto this and blockchain that, and the other one's calling it a scam. That person's actually going to vote for us and what we believe in, if we're able to message it correctly, which is another challenge that we won't touch that one right now. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. And just kind of the failure of us as a movement to really be setting a lot of those narratives, which is why so often we're coming behind saying, well, we were that before it was cool. We've become the hipster party because, pro LGBT, pro cannabis, even pro 2A. It's like, we're better than that. We're the cooler ones. And then, but we didn't actually do anything about it. We're not the ones that made it famous. We're not the ones that made it popular. And so the other people that did got to set the narratives, and that's why we have, ridiculous regulation on cannabis, and why like almost every bill that has anything to do with LGBT is just growing the size and scope of government instead of getting it out of our lives like it should have been. Like it's a problem. 100% agreed.
Yep. Well, and going back to the iceberg that you just decided to drift by, and that was the messaging, right? I mean, that is something that we focus on a lot on my show. And reason being is because messaging matters, right? If you are not having a cohesive message that identifies not just who you are, but what you represent, then you are a squishing nothing to the average voter, right? And that's who we have to reach out to, is the average voter. They are our customer. And if we're not going to market ourselves to them and meet them where they're at on those issues that they specifically want us to meet them on, then the other two parties are going to, and they're going to win. And then we can sit there and, piss and moan and bring our ball home and say, well, they didn't play the game we wanted them to play. And it's like, well, too bad. They played the game and they won, and that's on us.
Yeah. So, but can't think of a better segue into what we're trying to talk about than playing their game and hopefully us winning this time. So you wrote a book. It's called How to Win Your Local Election. So give us just like a brief overview of what's it about, and then we can kind of dive into it more.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I started things off writing this book trying to address a main problem I saw, and that was a lot of people in the greater liberty movement, but just in general, who wanted to get involved in local politics. They had the ambition, but they didn't have the tools. They didn't have the resources to actually make that step. So one of the main barriers to entry is that knowledge base. So I said, you know what? I've been in politics now for, 15, 20 years. And I was like, I've worked on local campaigns. I've worked on state campaigns. I've worked on federal campaigns, but I really, really, really enjoyed working on the local campaigns, namely because when you're working with a local candidate, not only do you really get to hear about those specific issues that matter to the actual community, but then you can see the direct impact that candidate can bring to that community when they win, and they can actually make things better, and that impacts real people. So we wrote this ebook, How to Win Your Local Election, and it's a quick, succinct, free ebook, right? 17 pages. It's all actionable stuff from literally starting out your campaign, understanding why you're running for office, fundraising, messaging, building your campaign team, everything in between, all the way up until election day when you actually go to the voting booth and you win your election. That's what we're looking to do, and hopefully we're having some success here. We've heard some pretty good things thus far, so we're going to hopefully keep our fingers crossed that we keep it up towards November.
I like it a lot. One of the things that has frustrated me more than anything at all within the movement and everything that we're doing is how often I have to watch people reinvent the wheel on
always
pretty much everything, whether we're talking about local like party affiliate startup or candidate running campaigns, or even like a new podcast comes out and you're having to be like, well, what's the difference between OBS and StreamYard, and how do I use Restream, and like why isn't my Odyssey account working, and like it's just, no matter what we're trying to do, we're always reinventing the wheel. And there's so many helpful people in the movement that you can talk to and use as a resource, and that's been awesome. But that takes time. And you're getting mixed reviews, and you're getting kind of slow responses, and you're not actually getting a whole lot of help necessarily. There's a lot of people willing to share their experiences and opinions, but not a whole lot of like actionable, okay, you just do this, then this, then this.
Well, and that's because we have so many different ways of doing things that we all, and we have our own opinions, but I think it's also a lot of folks don't like putting out their quote unquote secret sauce, right? Because then people can actually try it, right, and see if it actually works, or they're just BSing. And I think that also speaks to why there's so much burnout in the greater liberty movement, is because so many people try to bite off way more than they can chew, right? They're going to start the groundbreaking podcasts, and they get in 5 episodes, and they're like, wait, I have to keep doing this every single week in order to keep the views coming in. Like, what? And there's more to it than that too. It's all the stuff behind the scenes that nobody talks about beyond the quick 30-minute, hour-long episode you did. No, that's right. There's a lot more behind the scenes. And all of a sudden, I think a lot of people just decide, you know what, it's just not worth the effort, right? So to that point earlier, people end up reinventing the wheel. And I mean, I've seen so many podcasts just, rebirth of old podcasts from yesteryear. And I mean, I've been in this movement now since I think 2017, well, actually 2015, when I started doing stuff with Austin Peterson's Libertarian Republic. So, I mean, I've been in this movement now for going on 8 years. And you've seen almost like a reincarnation of certain podcasts or certain like personas in the movement. And I think it's just because we don't really have any real forward direction, right? There is no vision. It is a movement has been very scattered, and I think it's namely because we as a movement are weary of people in leadership, because we unfortunately conflate leadership and power as two equal things. But leadership is not equal to power. Leadership involves power, but it's earned power. It's not just assumed power. And with that, leadership is important because it helps give a sense of direction. And we have none of that right now. And what we've been able to really accomplish thus far, and now we look electorally, we don't have many skins to the wall. So it means one thing, yes, to change hearts and minds, which is part of the battle. But the other part is inevitably to get skins on the wall. And in this case, it's let's get people into local office. Let's start where there's low-hanging fruit. And that is the easiest place, not only to win actual elections, but then to turn that into something. Use that as a means to make a good change in your community and earn people's trust. Show people that you're not just the crazy libertarian who rants and raves on social media every time the government oversteps their bounds, but actually show that you're willing to help bring solutions to the table to make people's lives better. They'll appreciate it, and then they'll trust you when you decide, hey, maybe I want to run for assembly or Senate, or then maybe take a step to federal office, run for Congress, run for U.S. Senate. I mean, that's when you start to really make those leaps and strides, is when you've earned people's trust and you are actually able to build a real rapport with your constituency. And it doesn't start by just you coming in and having all the greatest ideas and good ideaing them to death. Yet that's how you're going to turn people away.
Yeah. You hit the nail right on the head with the earn their trust point there. Like, actually, it's great that this is my next episode, because the last episode I did was with Harrison Kemp up in Maine, and I went on a rant about like how to win a local election. I was like, here's your 4-year plan.
Harrison has a great book too, by the way, if you haven't read it yet.
He actually sent me a copy early on in our friendship, and so I got to read that quite a while ago. It was a very good book. And my rant basically was, I'll give a much shorter version. It was if you want to run for like assembly or state senate or something like that, something that's small but bigger, run for it this time. While you're doing it, establish a like surrogate person that like talks with you, that is also kind of establishing a rapport. Run him for mayor next year, and then run again with his endorsement as a sitting mayor the following year, and spend his entire campaign being his surrogate and talking and doing things and out in the community, campaigning, but not for yourself. And so it's even like a selfless networking, or at least it comes across as it while you're doing it.
Well, and we have to not be, the guys who show up every 2-4 years, right? That's the other part, is libertarians tend to kind of be, pardon the expression, but hermits, right? We just kind of do our own thing. We self-isolate, and then we exist online in packs. But in terms of real life stuff, we're pretty much loners usually. Yeah. And it involves us to get involved in our communities. I mean, go get involved at your Elks or your American Legion. Go get involved at the AMVETS. Like, go donate your time. Go invest your time in your community and show that you're not there asking for something, but you're there to give something, right? I mean, this is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like 101 right here. And that's a 100-year-old book. It's still as pertinent, Dave, if not more pertinent today, because of the fact that we as a society have so forgotten how to actually have a connection with a real person, how to be an authentic human being. So I hopped in a sales call today, and I got one of the best compliments I've ever gotten with one of my prospects. And for those of the folks who are listening that don't know, so I'm a sales executive in the cybersecurity telecommunications industry. I work with C-level executives, CIOs, CISOs, IT directors, IT managers, and we're just focusing on pretty much anything in the world of their technology stack. And we're wrapping up our call, and he goes, "Brian, I got to be real with you." He's like, "That was the most sales call I have ever had." He's like, "That just felt like we just chatted for half an hour." And I was like, "Yeah, but I got everything ready to roll. Like, I'm going to be able to get a quote for you in an hour." And he's like, "I only remember telling you stuff." And I'm like, "No, you told me everything I need to know. Like, I have all your counts. I have everything." And he's like, "I don't remember telling you that." He's like, "But I guess we talked about it." And like, it's when you're able to have that just genuine conversation with someone. And this is the other part too that we forget, right? Is you have to have a real solution to somebody's problem. And I loathe the expression, well, that guy can sell ice to an Eskimo. No, you know what? You shouldn't be a sales guy who can sell ice to an Eskimo, because then I don't trust you. Because you know what? An Eskimo shouldn't need ice. You need to sell your solution to people's problems. It cannot be that you're trying to fit the square peg through a round hole. And I've told many a customer, I'm like, hey, listen, based on this first 5-10 minutes of our call, I'm just being real. It doesn't sound like we're going to be a good fit. There's no budget. There's no pressing need, whatever it may be. And to be upfront and transparent with them, like, hey, I'm going to give you back 40 minutes of your day. I'm not going to make you sit through this 40-minute long demo and listen to me, talk about XYZ stuff that's just not on your radar. And frankly, I'm going to give myself the respect I deserve and not wasting my time. I can go and then use that time, invest it in finding somebody else who can use my solution to solve their problem. So same thing is true for us when we're going out with our political solutions. When you're trying to make an impact in your community, don't be the guy standing on the corner with a mic, like a blowhorn or a microphone, just screaming about the problem and not offering a real solution. But also, don't just like offer a solution and then just disappear. Offer a solution and then get involved, lead, show how it can get actually accomplished. Don't just talk, show, do, act. Apt. What's the Michael Scott phrase? He's like apt. Don't act, apt, react, readapt, apt, whatever it is. The Office, everyone. Michael Scott.
I so much agree with the like ice selling ice to an Eskimo phrase. It boils my insides. It drives me nuts because I also, full-time sales exec in the daytime, and I work in the financial sector, and so in my industry, a lot of my competitors will sell any loan to anybody that's dumb enough to take it. And I've watched businesses, sales that I've lost because I either, wasn't quick enough or wasn't aggressive enough or whatever. I've watched these companies go under because they've drowned in the debt of, what my competitors will do to them. And I just kind of refuse to play that game. And so one of my opening sales call, the first time I'm talking to this person, one of my questions is, what is the return on investment that whatever thing you're just told me you're going to do with this money is going to give you, that will help you cover the added cost of paying back the loans that you're taking out? And if they can't answer that question, I'm telling them have a great day. Like,
it's not a good fit.
Yep. If their answer is, well, I hope, or I think, or something like
hope
that,
is not a strategy.
Nope. Go make somebody else some money. I would rather not, because we also have clawbacks in my industry. Even though I'm the vice president of my company, the people that pay us the commissions, some of them have 60-90 day clawback periods where if they default within the first 3 months of this loan, I'm out, my salespeople are out, the whole company is out a whole bunch of money. So I'm not playing with that ever.
No, clawbacks suck.
Yeah. Nope. So I agree though with the kind of comparison to politics. We can't be the people who are just shoving stupid solutions down people's throats, which is what the two major parties are doing most of the time. And sure, it's working for them, but we have to be, we're not selling ice to Eskimos. We're selling ice to people that live in the desert. We're the only people that are going to get them this ice, or at least that's what we have to come across as. It's saviors that are just doing this crazy, amazing thing that no one else could do. And I think if we come across like that, and then to your other point, actually do it in the off years. If we're talking about if the government would just leave us alone and stop doing this, and that, we would be able to feed the homeless people better. Well, when your campaign is over, or during your campaign even, do what you say you could do if government didn't interfere, and wait for government to interfere. And there you go. Free earned press for your next campaign.
David, imagine if instead of every time we get some half-assed response of oh, the libertarian paradise in Somalia, we could be like, no, the libertarian paradise of like Tallahassee or libertarian paradise of like Nashville, right? Like if we could reset the narrative to like no longer being some arbitrary mythical world that doesn't exist beyond the confines of our libertarian minds, and actually point to a place that's having tangible success based on libertarian principles, it changes everything, right? Because no longer is that an argument that we have to address. As a matter of fact, now some may say we're setting narratives, right, instead of responding to them. And no longer are we in the position where we have to be the meme of the actually guy, but instead we can just lead by example, right? And that will put us in such a different position, because then we are in the driver's seat. We're not the ones having to play catch up every single time in trying to explain ourselves away, because while we're explaining and we're losing, they're miles ahead, right? They're already approaching the finish line. We haven't even gotten past the first road marker. So it's on us to stop putting ourselves in a less advantageous spot from the onset and start doing things differently.
I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of people on the internet thinking and having enough legitimate evidence to continue to think this, no matter how many people they meet or facts they learn, that libertarians are just objectively bad people. Like, I got one of my favorite interactions that's becoming now like at least a monthly trend. I got sent a screenshot from Reddit from my sister, who is not a libertarian. But she voted. I'll say this: she voted Johnson Sharp Jorgensen, but she is not a libertarian.
Okay.
So she's really close, but
she gets it though. She knows
Almost.
that stuff's up.
Yeah. She knows that the two parties are bullshit. She's just not like fundamentally. She's not there with the philosophy, but she's almost there with the politics. But she sent me a screenshot of an LP New Hampshire tweet. Which, like I said, is now becoming kind of a habit of hers, that she'll find these on Reddit, and the comments are just like way out there, like, oh, the Nazi, like sociopath, narcissist, like, they're all in there. And she's just like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, why are these people your friends? And especially with New Hampshire, because she knows that I'm friends with pretty much the entire social media team there. So, I had to find myself explaining to my sister today why Lincoln is worse than Osama bin Laden.
Which, I mean, is that a conversation I want to have? Probably not. Is it a conversation we should have at some point? Yeah. But I guess this comes down to how do we reach your average person, right? And if you start out with that, I mean, yeah, it's going to definitely get people to raise an eyebrow and ask questions, but it's also going to instantly turn off a bunch of people, much like Trump, right? Like I just had this conversation yesterday, I think it was on my show, where guy was from the PAC Ready for Ron, and it's focusing on trying to get Ron DeSantis as the GOP nominee for 2024. And the reason I brought up with this last time was about Trump, saying, look at Trump, right? There are so many people out there who just instinctually will see his name and just be like, no. And you could be like, yeah, but Trump, he's changed. No. And it's a vehement no. And that right there speaks to why it is so important for us to try and do things differently, because you don't want to get into the position that people just instantly say no when they hear your solution, or not even your solution, they just hear your name, right? So when we're leading in with, hey, listen, Lincoln was worse than Osama bin Laden, that doesn't even like hit on the same wavelength as where your average person is. You can get there. We can get them to there. We can get involved in that conversation, but let's do that later. Let's find out what matters to them. Let's start building bridges and get them on board with our solutions to that specific problem. and earn their trust. It's not an overnight thing. And this is the thing that drives me crazy with a lot of libertarians, but this isn't just libertarians. This is like your average person. We are dopamine hit society, like gone mad. We want our dopamine hit and we want it now. And when you see that type of mentality in politics, it leads to messaging that does not effectively get people on board for a long-term switch from where they are to where we can bring them. When you plant a seed, it does not grow overnight. It takes time. And I know, like, people are like, we don't have time. That's fine. You can be as like revolutionary and reactionary as you want, but we have to do stuff differently. We can't just play the same game that everybody else is. I just talked about this on my show recently where, you know, you look at the advancements in AI, right? Chat GPT, like you can go ask it to make anything, right? But what's going to happen is in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, the entire market is just going to be AI content gen across the board. And it's going to be white noise. It's going to just be gray, one note, blech. But when somebody is different and they do things differently, and in this case, build a real authentic relationship and earn people's trust the good old fashioned way, the Dale Carnegie way, that's what works, right? Is trying to actually meet people, not just where they're at on the issues they care about, but also as a real person. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. It's the golden rule. We learn it when we're little kids, but it stays true and even more so to when we're adults. That's when it really matters. We forget it when we're older. We think that the world owes us something when we're older. And just because we have certain things figured out, that everybody else should too. That's not how it works. And if we ever were addressed the way that we think we are addressing other people would be effective, we would laugh in the other person's face because it's so ineffective. And as a matter of fact, it pushes people away. So let's do things differently, right? Let's focus on what works and what we see work. And David, you see this, it works in the business world. We see it work every single day. So let's do it in the world of politics. It will work. We see it work in local politics. I'm training candidates right now as we speak. This is stuff that works so long as we actually do it, right? We take the extra effort and we do it right. Do you watch HGTV by chance?
Sometimes. My parents
Mike Holmes,
do.
He's the do it right guy, right? Like he'll spend probably an extra like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a house when he's trying to put all the stuff into it. But he does that because he wants it to be right. He wants to make sure it's done properly. So 20 years, 30 years down the road, a family doesn't have to uncover, errors that were done haphazardly when the team's going through and building things, today. So let's take that extra effort now, and we will see long-term that it will pay off. Just like Ron Paul, when he was speaking hard truths, but he did it in a way that was impactful and it met people where they're at, where people were hurting after 7 years of perpetual war.
Yeah.
It was a tough conversation, but what did he do, right? He started a movement that fast forward 12, 15 years later, here we are, right? Here's what we're doing, and we're making a difference. Here's Dave Smith. Here's, Michael Malice. Here's Eric July. You go through the list of people who are making a difference and they're making an impact, right? And that's something that we can't undercount, because that all started when one man was able to stand up on a stage and do something courageous back in 2008. And it's going to continue even more so as we go forward to 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you're something, you said a lot of great stuff there, but something
Sorry, I went on a rant there.
Oh, you're good. You were talking about the, seeds don't grow overnight kind of mindset. And I think something that I struggle with, and it's not a movement specific thing, it's a society specific thing currently, where as soon as you change your mind on something, you completely forget that you were just that 30 seconds prior and moving forward. So like a great example as far as like my terrible libertarian credentials, when I was running for office as a libertarian in 2019, having worked on the Johnson and Sharp campaigns, sort of on the Johnson, like 2 days of volunteer, and then working on Larry Sharp's campaign, and then running for office myself as an L, as a county, position holder, I was still like super firm, like closed borders, like very nationalistic, like the best defense is a good offense as far as like foreign policy. You know, basically a war hawk. Somebody that right now I would be like completely against, and you know, have gone on plenty of rants about you know, like Tulsi, for example, and some of how nationalistic of a view she has on things. And you know, I have to remind myself consistently that not only was I welcomed into the party, I was given like official positions and allowed to run for office on their party line, while I still held a lot of these positions that I now think of as deal breakers. And so, you know, we do that. I feel like we do that a lot. And the deeper you sink into the anarchist like pit of despair, and the more black pills that you take, you know, you end up in this place where like nobody's really good enough for you. And you know, what do you do with that? You know?
Well, it's a lot of humility and a lot of empathy, which I know we don't have a lot of times. Especially the empathy part. And I know that empathy gets a bad rap a lot of times. Like, empathy is more than just the mushy feeling stuff, right? Empathy is putting yourself in other people's shoes, and it requires you to actually like pause. And this is something I've had to get better at, David. Like, you know, let's talk like vulnerability time, right? Like I am, and I have always been a notoriously very fast paced talker. And
really, I couldn't tell.
I know, right? And I actually have to like consciously slow things down, just so I'm able to have more like my thoughts laid out, because I was just going a mile a minute, just like Michael Scott. And that was something that I had to work on. But it was also important for me because I had to remember that when I'm speaking to people, you have to look for the are you getting it? Kind of checking the boxes, like the moments when you're in a conversation, you can tell like the okay, they got that point. Yes, they got that point. And you're seeing things come together. When you just go a million miles an hour, you lose that ability. And that's something that libertarians, we're very learned, right? Like you ask us what's the best book to read on libertarians, you're going to start 13 different podcasts on that just right there, right? And we'll tell you what books to read. Oh, yeah. But your average person, man, they don't have the time. They don't have the energy. And we try to just bombard them with information, and we try to good idea them to death. And that just doesn't work. It won't work, right? You have to understand what makes people tick. And at the end of the day, emotions are the drivers for human beings, whether we like it or not. I mean, Ben Shapiro can bitch and moan about how facts don't care about your feelings. It's like, that's great, but feelings sell, and feelings are what people vote on. So while we're ignoring that and we're facting people to death, it doesn't matter when we're not meeting them on that emotional trigger, that emotional button. So I've always found that when you slow down and you truly think about what, you know, why is the person you're speaking to asking this question, right? Or what's the context that they have behind this question? And frankly, you have the ability to ask those follow-up questions. One of my favorite things to do when I'm in a sales call is just to do the, could you tell me a little bit more about that? I'll just do that, and they'll go on, man. They'll go for another 10 minutes, right? And just showing that genuine interest in whatever it is that person trying to present to you, you're now giving them a chance to vent, right? Everybody has that friend that likes to vent. Be that person that they're venting to, and then be the person that actually can help solve it, right? Like this is the notorious like girlfriend who asks for your advice and then never takes it, but only this time that person can take it and actually make their lives better, and then you get paid. Pretty cool.
Right. All right, so we've got one question from the missus, because she doesn't think my show is interesting enough with all this, politics and crap. So if you were given an elephant, you can't get rid of it, what do you do?
Man, I'm such a capitalist, because my first thing was like, how can I monetize this elephant? Damn it. Well, I guess it would depend on where the elephant where the elephant came from. Like, the elephant's got a family and stuff I gotta care about. Like, I gotta figure out a way to get that elephant in touch with his family. But otherwise, if that elephant is a ready and willing laborer, like, we're gonna do elephant rides. We're gonna do like plowing elephant fields. I don't know. We're gonna have some elephant fun though.
All right, I dig it.
Fun. Oh, I hate myself.
Oh man.
It's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday. It's a great day for elephant jokes.
Always.
Is there ever a bad day for elephant jokes?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I really do think that people with either a sales background or some sort of like religious background have just a huge leg up in politics because they're given that like that foreground of, this is how the mindset of convincing people of something works. I think as far as politics goes, religion is a better, thing to compare it to because of what you were talking about with like, the planting seeds and it taking time.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you already have, hundreds of times somebody being like, well, you never save someone, God really saves them. Like in the back of your head the whole time that you're talking to people about libertarianism, it's like whether or not you even believe in that anymore, which like I don't fully, but, there's still that element of like, you can't make someone a libertarian. They have to make themselves a libertarian.
Yes. My dad's a pastor, so I think that partly explains why I have a little bit of both of those bona fides there, right? Because I mean, you're right though. It is exactly pun intended, same church, different pew, right? Like you have to understand that you are speaking to your congregation from your pulpit in many cases with a message. And it's just, what are you wearing? Are you wearing the clergy robes? Or are you wearing the politician clothes? Right. Like, and that's the difference. And when you start to piece it all together that, oh, this is all kind of the same game. It's just under a different mask, then all of a sudden things make a lot more sense.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe that's just like speaking to the critics that call like libertarianism like a cult and a religion, but maybe.
Well, and I mean, let's give them, some benefit of the doubt, empathy, right, David? And this is, what do they see? They're seeing a bunch of people that they have no context. We are literally speaking different languages than they're speaking, and they see us engage in their mind a cult-like behavior because we like the ability to congregate online because that's the place that we actually have a connection with people. Many of us don't have that connection, like the liberty-based connection in our main social circles. So we get together online, and when that's the first interaction or the only interaction that people have with us, then that becomes their perception. And what do we know about sales and marketing and messaging? Perception becomes reality. So that's why instead of us engaging in what could be even alluded to being cult-like behavior, let's do things differently, right? Let's approach things in a different way. And who knows, maybe we'll have different results. Yeah. I think we will.
I couldn't agree more. Brian, tell us about the show, how people can find you, all of that fun stuff, and how they can find your book and all that stuff before we wrap up.
For sure, my man. Well, how about this? We'll start with the book because the book is free, and I want to start that off. I was over on John Odermatt's show on the Lions of Liberty Network, and he was wrapping up the show, and he's like, "Well, people go buy Brian's book," and I'm like, "No, John, it's free. It's a free ebook, and you can go ahead and find your copy at briannicholsshow.com/win local." And you can just, if you go to my website, briannicholsshow.com, the link is right there on the homepage. But as for the Brian Nichols Show, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, we are teaching people how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about, showing you how to not win arguments, but win hearts and minds, but more importantly, win sales, both in the world of business and in the world of politics. We have amazing guests on the program, ranging from folks like, we had a trust expert on the show this past week. We have sales experts. We have political consultants. We have elected officials, economists, all that and more. And we're trying to just have different conversations and really just change the way that we address these issues. And I will say, if folks want to get in touch with me, the best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter at B Nichols Liberty. And if I could leave people with a word of advice, it is the world is just so full of just depression and anxiety and negativity. And if you want to see things get better, it starts with you. Be the change you want to see in the world and surround yourself with good people, like-minded people who share those values, because at the end of the day, good people bring out the good in people. So let's be good people.
Amen. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you don't already, go ahead and click the subscribe button or the like or the follow, however you're watching this. If you're watching this on one of the evil old tech platforms, go on over, subscribe to Odyssey, because that's where we're going to be pushing the majority of the content. You can go to fightforliberty.live and subscribe there as well, and donate if you want to, help the show out. Help me buy a new charger for my main laptop, because this show has been a little glitchy because we're running off the old one. But then come on back here. Next week, we're going to be talking to the legislative director from LP Maine, Samantha Brown. Then the following week, we have actor Mark Pellegrino coming back to the show. So definitely subscribe, keep updated, because we're going to have some great content coming your way. Brian, again, thanks for coming on. This was great.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, one thing too, if folks want to go ahead and get some awesome Liberty swag, they can go to briannicholsshow.com/shop. We have our good ideas don't require force snapback. And then I made this. This is our Magic Money Tree shirt. You can go ahead and use code TBNS. I'll get you 10% off at checkout.
All right. Well, you heard him, guys. Go buy the merch, get the book for free, and then subscribe to everything